Hi, I'm Jill Galloway. I'm an artist educator at the Smithsonian's National Portrait Gallery. In today's Open Studio lesson, we're going to talk about a Henrietta Lacks portrait. This portrait is packed with symbolism, from the patterns to the dress to objects. So we're going to start with that portrait, talk about her biography, look at the portrait more closely, and then we're going to try an art project based on the symbols found within the portrait. Let's start first with her biography. Henrietta Lacks lived in the late 1940s and into the early 1950s. It was the Jim Crow era in our country, which meant inequality and segregation, including in healthcare. When Henrietta Lacks became sick, she wasn't immediately able to get the healthcare she needed, and at the age of 31, she died of cervical cancer. This portrait was made posthumously, meaning after she died, and is based on this photograph. At this time during our country's history, it was common practice for doctors to take cells from patients without their permission for purposes of study. This is no longer allowed. And for about 50 years, doctors were trying unsuccessfully to get cells to reproduce in a petri dish, until Henrietta Lacks' cells. Her cells not only lived, but reproduced and have been for more than 70 years. The artist Kadir Nelson fills this portrait with symbolism to tell the story of Henrietta Lacks. Let's look at each of the symbols. When we look at this portrait, we see her standing with her hands holding a Bible, a symbol of her deep faith. They're crossed over her stomach area where the immortal cells came from. Notice her bright yellow hat, which looks like a halo, and her pearls, which represent the pearl-like cancer cells that were removed from her body. And if we look closely at the buttons on her dress, we can see that two are missing. That's the area where her cells were removed. The red dress has a floral pattern made with one continuous spiraling line that recalls a cell structure, and the repeated pattern on the wallpaper is a hexagonal shape that contains the flower of life symbol, which is an ancient symbol of immortality. The symbols and patterns found within this portrait tell the story of Henrietta Lacks, and that's the inspiration for today's lesson. The supplies you'll need for today are some fruit like an orange, lime, or lemon, acrylic paints, a heavier stock paper like a cardstock or mixed media, and some sort of tray like a paper plate or a foam tray. Using fruits to make prints is a great way to copy the patterns in this portrait because they have an organic quality just like Henrietta Lacks' cells. The first step is to cut your fruit in half. You'll need to put a few colors of paint down on your tray or paper plate. Now dip your fruit into the paint, being careful to not overload it, and start making even patterns with your fruit. Notice how in the wallpaper and in the dress in the portrait, the patterns are evenly spaced. This is called a repeat. You typically find repeat patterns in things like wallpaper and textiles used for clothing or furniture, and sometimes wrapping papers. You can use as many colors as you like, even mixing the colors, and you don't have to stay in the lines. Feel free to experiment with these patterns. If you would like to learn more about Henrietta Lacks' portrait and the artist Kadir Nelson, you can look online in two places. First, at our website at www.npg.si.edu, or second, you can go to the Smithsonian's Learning Lab at learninglab.si.edu. Thanks so much for joining me for today's Open Studio lesson. I hope you enjoyed the lesson. We would love to see what patterns you came up with today. If you wouldn't mind posting them on social media with the hashtag MyNPG, then we can all check it out. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.